This hangout on here is live.
Dum dum dum.
Live. It's not hot here at all. It's like 70, but the humidity is so much. I had to turn the air conditioner on just because I'm in a basement, right? Three of the four walls are underground, and
Right.
it's just like being in a cave.
Eat a lot of beef jerky and collect the silica packets.
Well, they sell those. You can buy big buckets of that stuff.
Yep, and you can get the
dump it on
ones
the
that
floor like
recharge.
sawdust.
Wow, that doesn't sound good.
Is it me, or is it what your output?
Yeah,
Or-
I think I'm just blowing it out. Although it's only showing like one bar.
Huh.
Let me try. Check 1, 2, 3. It may just be the crappy laptop I'm listening on.
Oh, that could be.
I'm gonna try turning my output down a little and see what that does. I see, and I can see. You guys probably are seeing it, but I can't. That there's a little corner. Where is it? Right
Up by the live.
there.
The little piece of exposed wood.
Did that make it go away?
Nope, it's still there.
I don't see it on my. Now I see. Okay. I see the other side now.
And
So-
now you have white on the other side.
How about that?
You still have a.
I see a
white
little white
fuzz
on the
ball.
other side. I
There
don't
you
see
go.
any. It's all gone.
These moving blankets.
They're doing their job today.
Yeah, I mean these are great. You can pick them up for like $4 each, and they're moderate soundproofing. But they're they're a bland pattern. I wish they didn't have the white thread in them. They'd be better. But
So with your solid colored background, you should be able to use the background effects fairly effectively. Wouldn't
yeah,
you?
the problem is I'm too close to the background.
Oh, is that what it is?
There's not enough space. The light is too uneven. Maybe if I had some lights back here and made the light more even. Let me show you what happens. It's not awesome. You guys watching? Hi.
This
So
is
if I
what we do
that-
before show. Oh wow.
Yeah, because
that is.
it doesn't know what to do.
Someone's opened an interdimensional space-time rift. So
So I think it's either lighting or distance from the subject. I'm not sure which.
Yeah, I think when I do it, depending on which one I do, like if I go to the beach, I'm in the same boat, but I'm far from my
Yeah.
background.
So it's the lighting. You got to get an even light behind you. Other systems do it better.
Yeah,
The
chroma
Google,
key stuff is a lot better.
the Hangout stuff isn't great, and the color, right? If I had a nice blue, solid blue. The thing is, there's there's dark blues and there's light blues and there's shiny parts, and then this big boom right in the middle, and the Hangout software just isn't that advanced.
I'm imagining my future a month and a half from now.
See, you look the best of all.
Yeah.
It's picking out the flesh tones.
Well, you'd think mine would do a decent job, considering all my background is white, basically,
Yeah.
and I'm wearing a black shirt.
I like the little Cookie Monster shirt you can see in the background.
Yeah. I mean, that's terrible, but it's the best of all three.
Yeah.
Minicam used to do a better job of it. No, not Minicam. Webcam Studio. But that's totally no longer being developed and is on Google Code, which, as we'll talk about in a little bit, is going away. So, wah.
Darn
Dude,
it, Google.
I love how it just kind of flows through there. I love the effect on mine, how that there was a time that was an expensive
Very
special
yes.
effects job. And now it's a plaything. Okay, to turn this off,
click Remove All Effects at the bottom, or just exit out of.
Or just click
Google
that effect
Effects.
again.
That works too.
Okay.
I just clicked the effect that I
All
was
of those
on.
things work.
Well,
It's
apparently it
amazing
doesn't
all of them
because
do.
I closed out of it and it's still there. Doggone it.
So go down to the bottom and click Remove All Effects.
Ah, there we go. I was trying to figure out how to open it back up, but I never
doesn't
Yeah.
fix that because I thought it would. All right, so now I got to remember to look at the camera. See, this is why I have not wanted to do this stuff, because it requires a lot more effort on my part. Right now, I got to fix up my background. I got to fix my lighting. I got to get a monitor over there. Really,
And spousal approval for it all.
Right. And sadly, none of the good software is in Linux.
The KDN Live is supposed to be getting pretty good for video editing.
But yeah, it's not live.
Yeah, it's not live feed yet.
Webcam Studio was the best I'd seen, and the guy stopped developing it, and nobody else picked it up. All right, you're late. Let's go ahead and get this thing going.
Okay.
No particular topic tonight, as you saw. Just news.
Just us ramping.
I just couldn't think of any topic that I thought was interesting to me. And if it's not interesting to me, I can't make it interesting to the audience.
Right.
You know, I pretty well ranted last week. I got that out of my system. We've got a lot of intro stuff up there, which is fine. We'll make this a hostful episode, as Chris Hardwick calls them. I'm aware of my posture now. I'm all leaning to one side. See, you couldn't see enough of me before. I was going to get one of those repop filters that everybody uses that matches the mic really well. But they're $60, and I just can't see paying $60 for a thin piece of screen. I just can't. The tightwad still wins.
The tightwad in you still is the tightwad is strong in this one. Yeah. Is that what you're going after?
And my thinking was if I could raise the camera up a little and kind of look down, you'd be able to see more of my face. But when I did that, you could also see all the crap around me. So
right,
you really have to have an actual studio once you start getting HD video.
Well, the second we start doing video, that's when we're gonna have to. I'll have to clean up some of the stuff back there.
We'll have to get 3 new hosts and
prettier people. Yeah, and see, there's so much more around me now. That's not really necessary. I want to crop that shot, but again, since I'm using Linux, no good tools to crop the shot. Anybody watching this on YouTube, let me know if I'm wrong. If there's something in Linux that will let me take. I mean, I'll even get a different webcam. If I have to get a specific webcam, I'm fine with that. But there just aren't good tools to do that I'm aware of. They're great tools.
We're wasting good show fodder here.
Well, yeah. Yeah, okay.
That's
so
right.
I'll start that over again. So I'll put that. I'll put it right at the top.
Yeah, it's a good point. We should be putting that out there for maybe somebody to prove us wrong.
All right, let's start recording and go.
Are we going to do the count thing? Did that help? Or?
Yeah, it was actually helpful. So
okay.
We'll do that again. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You two synced up pretty well, but you were both behind me, which is to be expected in round trip time and all that.
Sure. I was impressed. I sound like I synced right up with you with not too much of a hiccup. So
right. To you, it would sound like that. And but it never will to me because I'm both the originating and receiving source.
Right.
But that's all right.
I was playing around, Mark, and I put my input on one input channel. Is that going to be a big deal? Rather than stereo?
No, it's fine. I always convert it to mono anyway.
Okay. it sounded a little better to me when I was doing that.
Yeah. Yeah, when you guys send me stereo in my own stereo mix, I always mix them to mono, because you just don't need 3 stereo feeds in a signal. It's pointless because there's only one source, right? It may say stereo, but it's the same signal because it's only coming from one mic.
Right.
Yep.
I'll fix that when I do my next load up.
If you had 2 stereos, or 2 mics, you could have true stereo, but it's just a misnomer, really. Okay, here we go. Make a marker, get my notes up, try to figure out how to look at the camera and read all at the same time. All right, here we go. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Everyday Linux, episode 184, Pi Plus One, recorded March 15th, 2015, and brought to you by Element Opie Productions, elementopie.com. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Linux show that's not about Linux, but about life in the context of Linux. I am your host, Mark, the Sultan of the Soapbox Cockerel, and joining me this week, as always, except for last week, are your stalwart, most of the time, co-hosts, Chris, the Command Line Godfather, and Seth, the GUI Kid Anderson. Hello, gentlemen.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to our weekly show of craziness, especially since I'm back.
And I have to confess that up until you read the title out loud, I was thinking that we were going to end up talking about the Raspberry Pi somehow. And when you were talking, I was, Pi Day.
Yes.
So,
so yesterday, there's a Pi Day every year, March 14th, 3.14. But this was a little different because it was 3.1415. And then if you did it at the right time, it was 3.141592654. I think it is. Google it or go to
5.3 that would round up to 4.
Yeah, so go to Facebook, and there were a million posts about it. So at 9:23 and 54 seconds, something like that. My brain has just taken a vacation. Was like the pi to the greatest number you can get it using the Julian calendar. So. Julian, or are we on the
whatever calendar?
Are we on the Julian? What is the calendar we're on?
I don't remember.
I think it's Julian.
Yeah, it was Gregorian first, and then Julian.
Yeah.
Julius Caesar. He didn't do it. It was just named after him. But anyway, so using the current calendar that we use in the U.S. and most of the world, actually it doesn't work in Europe because the day and the month are reversed, was the closest you could get to Pi. So everybody was going freaking nuts about Pi Day. So I thought I would honor that. This is Pi Plus One.
Did any of you have Pi on Pi Day?
I did not.
I did.
I had cheesecake, so it looks like pie.
Well, a cheesecake is a custard pie. It is. I mean, you call it like a Boston cream pie isn't a pie. It's a cake. And you don't park on driveways or drive on driveways, and you don't park on parkways. So the language is screwed up.
I had myself a nice lemon meringue pie for Pi Day. And I'll have again tonight because we're not quite done with the pie.
I played around with my Raspberry Pi on Pi Day, so it's a little more accurate. Having some issues. I haven't decided whether it's the external drive I'm doing or if it's a funky thing with the Pi 2 or maybe with the Alpha software I'm having to run on it. But randomly, for no apparent reason, the hard drive renamed itself. So it came from the factory with a name like EDH _1 dash, whatever the factory named it. And I just never changed that. Well, for some reason, it added an underscore to the end of that. Thus, everything in my library was wrong because it was pointing to the wrong directory. Instead of ed-h1, it was pointing to ed-h1 underscore. And
I think we've been hacked by the NSA.
I think that's what it is.
Oh no!
I think
it's
so.
Over.
I spent quite a bit of time before I figured that because in the GUI display it didn't show the underscore. It wasn't until I pulled up the file manager and got a textual representation of it that it showed the underscore, and I was like, well, that's funky. And so then I tried to rename it, and it wouldn't let me. It said I didn't have permissions to rename it. So there's any number of things that could have been at play there, but suddenly all 300 and something movies, 326 I think I'm up to now, just disappeared. And I was like, holy crap, what's the deal here? Everything, because the library was still there, but every time I clicked on one, it said this file is not there. And so I went into file manager mode, and there they all were. And I went back to the library, and it wasn't there. I went back to file manager, and they were, and I couldn't.
Weird.
Finally figured out it was that stupid underscore. So
Yeah, that's really weird. The only time I've ever seen anything like that is like when a drive tries to recover itself.
yeah, and you know, like I said, there's any number of possibilities. I'm using a SATA 3 drive in a USB enclosure plugged into a Pi 2 running an alpha version of OSMC. So there's lots of points of failure that could happen there.
Yeah, there is. That's sounds like a headache.
Is this
To
the
try and
Pi
figure that one
2 or the Pi?
It's the Pi 2. It's the new one. So
Maybe,
on Pi
maybe
Day,
somebody took a picture of it with the flash
it could
camera.
be. Could
and-
be. I have it in a
Right.
black case to prevent that.
Oh, there you
On
go.
Pi Day, the Pi 2 fought with me.
It was angry for Pi.
So, Chris,
It
welcome
wanted
back. You weren't here last week, and
Nope.
we demand that you do you have a note from your doctor?
I don't have a note from my doctor, but I do have a note from the hardware store because I had to go run to do a hot water replacement. My mother's hot water heater went kaplooey Friday night.
They do that.
Yes, they do. And hers went out critically bad, like water.
As
all
in
over the
dump
basement.
40 gallons of water everywhere, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So that was Friday night. Saturday was, well, we can get a water heater here in town for $900, or you could make a screaming trip to Billings to pick one up for $300. And so I went, I guess I'll make it a trip to Billings then.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's what was going on. I was on my way back from Billings, and it was a little later than I was anticipating to get home, and, yeah, I missed it. But we did get the water heater in, and it's heating water like a champ, and there's no leaks or nothing. And this weekend I played plumber again, and we did some work in my house for, toilets and sinks and drains and stuff. So it's just been, I didn't sign up for being a plumber. I wonder where that job
Well,
title.
you signed up for being a homeowner, which makes you a plumber.
I'm not a homeowner
and an
yet, though.
electrician. Oh, okay, you're right.
You're a son. That's even
There's
worse.
that. Yeah.
That too. That, I think that's the bigger truth. But yeah, so far every plumber job I did, none of them leaked. So that's a good start.
I had convinced myself that when my hot water, see, I did it, hot water heater. When my water heater went out, I was going to replace it with one of those tankless things, which is essentially like a radiator with either a really intense electrical coil wrapped around it or gas flaming jets. They're pretty cool. Instant hot water, never runs out, and you buy based on the volume you think you'll need it at any one time.
Yep.
So I was thinking, I've got 5 people in my house. Washing machine and dishwasher are pretty much in constant motion with 5 people in my house. So I would need something I could run 3 sources at any one time. So when my water heater needed to be replaced, I went looking for those, and I found that the cost was, I'm making this up because I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was something like $4,000 just for the device. Not counting the installation, and like you said, a water heater is $300 to $400 typically because it's just a tank. There's nothing to
Yeah.
it. It's a pot with a burner at the bottom,
Pretty much.
and some fiberglass in there. So, but yeah, it was going to be several $1,000s for that, and then this company would only allow licensed people to do it, and the nearest licensed person was like 3 hours away, and was going to start billing me from the moment they got in their car.
Wow.
And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go get a big pot with a burner in the bottom of it. This was several years ago. The rules may have changed since then, and I still think that's the way to go. But I do know a school around me that invested in them, and what they told me was it takes so much energy to heat the water that quickly because water is very difficult to heat. That's one of the reasons it's great for putting out fires. That their energy bills skyrocketed once they put those things in.
Huh. Well, I could see that if they went electric. If their electric plan, you would burn thousands of kilowatts an hour just to take a shower, or thousands of kilowatts a minute just to take a shower. So if you're running electrical and you have an expensive electrical rate, yeah, I could see your power bill going out the roof.
Water is an amazing molecule in that it can absorb just tremendous amounts of energy before it raises its own temperature. And the temperature is just a heat. Temperature is just a measure of the amount of energy in an object.
Mhm.
We call it temperature, but it's really just a measure of energy. And water can absorb tremendous energy before it changes its state in any way, before there are any quantum leaps that take place. Yes, that's the right word. It's not it's not just a television show with Scott Bakula.
But it was a
You know,
great
I was
television
actually
show.
listening to a theology radio broadcast when I first heard the definition of quantum leap, and I almost had a wreck because I was like, "That's what that means." I went all that time, and I'd never bothered to research it. And I'm listening to this religious podcast, and he defines quantum leap, and I was like, "What?" And then so when I got home, I Googled it, and I went, "Son of a gun!"
Yeah, every time you turn on a fluorescent light bulb, you're watching billions of quantum leaps take place. Because what happens is the gas inside it gets excited by the electrodes. The energy, the molecules do a quantum leap. The energy is then absorbed into the phosphorescent coating on the glass, which then absorbs that energy and releases it as light. And then they do a quantum leap back down to their previous state, and it starts all over again. So what you thought was a fancy thing has actually been in every office building for 40 years or 50 years.
Right. I just, I'd heard the term from the first
Right.
of the TV show, but I'd never bothered to what does that term mean? Is it even a real term? And then lo and behold,
And we've
I hear
taken
the
it
definition.
in modern parlance to mean a large advancement. That's what we refer to. It's a quantum leap in whatever, which is not really a bad definition, because you are talking about the amount of energy it takes for an electron to jump up an orbit. So that is an advancement. But we've also
Yeah.
we've misused all sorts of, for example, we have completely changed the definition of decimate. To decimate
Right.
originally meant to kill 1/10 of. Now we mean
Right.
to leave 1/10 alive. We've totally reversed the definition of that. Wow, we really got off track there.
That was a train wreck. Wow.
That's all right. That's what people listen to, and believe it or not, that is why people listen to this show. I hear that in all the feedback. Is I love the fact that you guys have such a great camaraderie and all that sort of stuff. And oh, by the way, you talk about Linux once in a while. But I do want to
thought
say
they listened purely for the Linux.
Yeah,
so
that's what it is.
silly.
I do want to say that I just finished season 4 of Star Trek: The Next Generation. I've been plowing through them on my home theater system, and that's no surprise. I'm a geek. I grew up with them. I've seen them all many times. 1987, when that show came out, I was sitting in front of my television I think it was Thursday night, maybe Friday night, when it came on, and that was before you could record stuff, where you could. VCRs were out, but they were way too expensive, and they were the size of a small boat. But
Right.
so now I have the whole 7-season box set. And, again, I'm a geek. That's not surprising. But the cool thing is my daughters have all gotten totally hooked on it. And so yesterday I pop on an episode, and the whole family sat down and watched almost all of season 4 just yesterday.
Oh wow.
And it was just constantly running. And they were no slouches there. They did 22 episodes a season.
Whack. Yeah.
So
That was back when a season meant something.
That's right.
dadgummit.
And so we watched 14 episodes yesterday. Just, they're 40-minute episodes. They're an hour on TV, but they're 40 to 44 when you take out all the commercials. And so it was just running all day. People were in and out of the room. People weren't glued to it, but that's what we did yesterday. I just felt, it was a geek parenting moment. It was a parenting win for me.
Right.
I have to do something similar with my son. He doesn't understand the benefit of Star Trek versus Star Wars, so we're going to sit down and do something similar. We went through and we watched a couple of the reboots for Star Trek, and then we're going to go back and watch the good stuff after the fact. So,
2, 4, 6,
find-
and 10. Yeah, 8 really wasn't.
yeah.
No, 8 was the really good one. It was 10 that sucked. That's the odds ones were bad and the even ones were good up until Insurrection. No,
Yeah.
it was Insurrection or the Nemesis. Star Trek Nemesis was terrible, and it broke the chain of all the even number ones being good. 8, Undiscovered Country. Was that 6? Maybe
I don't remember.
Undiscovered Country was 6, but I think that was the best one of them, the Borg one.
Yeah. Well, we'll
no,
be watching
Undiscovered Country
all
was
of the
4.
movies and all of the season
No.
episodes too. So
Undiscovered. No, Voyage Home was 4.
Oh.
Undiscovered Country was the Klingon one, and then First Contact was the Borg one.
Okay.
There you go. Oh, we're geeks. I love it.
it's horrible.
I go more by.
It's
I
awesome,
don't remember all the titles. I remember the numbers.
And if you're watching live, I want to say first, I'm sorry that you're subjecting yourself to this, but I just upgraded my webcam in my studio to a new 1080p high def guy, which I got in to my studio a little early to plug it in, set it all up, and then once it came on and everything was in pristine high def, I realized how crappy my surroundings look. So I started rapidly covering things with moving blankets just so there was at least a field of blue behind me. And now my lighting looks all weird. I'm all blown out. And now when I look down at the screen, I'm no longer looking at the camera on my laptop, so I'm looking away from you all the time. So now, because of this stupid webcam, I'm going to have to totally rearrange everything. I'm going to put a monitor on the wall behind me so that I can not look down. I'm going to have to fix my lighting. I'm going to fix my background. All because you people complained that the video was so bad on the Hangouts. So, yeah.
Well, it's all right. You wanted to do it anyway. You know you did.
Well, it's one of those things that one of the nice things about it being all blown out is the giant moles on my face are not as visible. But anyway, one of the things that was one of our stretch goals on the Patreon, elmandopie.com/Patreon, was if we hit a certain amount, all three of us would get a full HD studio upgrade. And then we would start putting real effort into the video shows. Right now, the video is just an add-on. It's there. A couple of people watch it a week, and it's not a big deal. But it is something I would like to do. I would like to do full-on video episodes in a feed with chyrons and graphics and all that good sort of stuff. But it's there's got to be money to make that happen. And I hate to beg for money, but if you want it, you got to pay for it.
There you go.
But
it's not all going to come out of our pockets.
Well, it's just not there to come out of our pockets. That's the problem.
Exactly.
I did want to update. I made a call a couple of episodes ago for a proxy because I wasn't able to reach my own servers, and a couple of you guys, 3 or 4 actually, stepped up and said, "Here you go," or let me know and I'll send you credentials. I had a few of those. Strangely enough, I called them out on the air, and the problem went away. I'm not willing to say that it's entirely the power of the Element Opie Army that made that happen, but it was a definite coincidence between the two. That episode came out on a Wednesday. Wednesday night, the problem went away. It was gone.
Huh. Go figure on that
Element
one.
Opie rules the world. Don't mess with us.
One step at a time to world domination, I tell you. We'll be there someday.
All right, Seth. So you say the whole freaking internet is broken. I don't disagree with you, but would you like to expound on that?
Man, I was getting ready last Sunday for the show, and we survived snowpocalypse again too. We've been dealing with the Great Texas Monsoon of the last week, and so it was raining pretty much forever, it seems like. But Sunday, I was doing show prep on my little tablet, and I thought, okay, well, I'll work on this tablet when I have a laptop. So I pulled out my laptop, and all of a sudden I couldn't connect anything. So I went, crappy laptop. Let me pull out my tablet. Pull out my tablet, nothing. So I was like, great, I'll just go up to the church because it says, everybody, if you're new to the show, this is not my wall you see behind me. I broadcast from my church for the awesome 5K or 5 megs that I get here. But it turns out that the internet connection to my house died Sunday. And hopefully somebody will come out Monday to look at it. So I have not had any internet at home for the whole week. And occasionally, my phone will go from no service to 3 bars without moving. So, I don't get email. It's awesome. I do nothing at home now. My online world consists of watching Dish Network. So
I don't know what I would do with no internet for a week. I'm not exaggerating. I don't know how I would handle that.
I was working outside in the rain because it was more exciting than watching TV. It was raining outside, and I'm out there doing some yard work just so I have something to do. I was freaking bored out of my mind. I think this week I'm going to buy another 100 or 200 books. So I'll have something to do if this ever happens again. But yeah, no internet since last Sunday at my house.
Wow. I think my kids would probably go into comas or something.
Yeah, my kids hate it when we drive out of range of the Wi-Fi on their tablets, and they're like, I can't get the internet. Can you turn on the hotspot on your phone? No. I'm not going to spend $1 billion a gigabyte just so that you can play Candy Crush or whatever.
Or watch YouTube.
Yeah, that too.
My kids are huge in the YouTube, and they just. My daughter wants to set up a channel. That's how into the YouTube she is. It's like, no, you're 6. You are not setting up a YouTube channel.
And Chris, you may be giving a distro review for the Korora project soon. It looks like.
Yes, I've actually moved both of my virtual machine and my laptop to the new version of Korora, and I know it's Fedora driven, but it's not Fedora. So
what's the difference?
Fedora is to Debian as Mint is to Ubuntu, or no.
Okay.
That was horrible.
It was Mint to Debian?
Yes, as Mint is to Debian, Korora is to Fedora. So it has all of the built-in media codecs. They do some generic tweaking to the UI. I have the virtual machine that I do my other stuff in that like my banking and everything. That's running GNOME, and then my laptop is running KDE or XFCE, not D, but just to see what the difference is between them all. So far, I'm impressed. The quick and dirty is compared to running Fedora, the 0 to start is a lot shorter.
Okay, so
I don't know.
So by making that comparison between Mint and Debian, what you're saying is that it's the base of Fedora, because Fedora already has a lot of stuff in it. It's not,
right.
It's not bare, but it has the drivers and the prettiness and Flash and that sort of stuff built in as well.
Yep. Yeah. So far, I haven't run into anything major that I haven't been able to do out of the box. I even tried to do a DVD encode with Handbrake, and out of the box, no problems. So that's a step better than what Fedora is when it comes to usability. I didn't have to go finding any of the. I didn't have to go dig out my document for doing the like MP3 codecs and stuff like that. They just worked out of the box. So I know before I kind of poo-pooed on Korora. I didn't think it was ready for prime time, but maybe I'll change my mind. We'll see.
All right. And Seth has a goat update. So Seth, how's the world of goats? Since you didn't have internet, you had to focus on that.
Yeah, no, I actually I sold some goats. A friend of mine contacted me. He's looking to, my goats. They're nicknamed Tax Deduction 1 through 14. Basically, that's their names. Except for the male, we call him Billy, and we really do. But he's looking to get some goats on his place so he doesn't have to mow as much. Fence off some of it, and he was like, "Hey, you want to sell some goats?" And I would love to sell some goats. So he came over and looked and saw. And he brought his truck and trailer over, and he got stuck. And so I had to use a come along to pull him out of the mud, and he got stuck again. So my cousin came with the tractor and pulled him out, then went back and pulled out the trailer. So yeah, I sold 3 goats. I'm a happy camper.
What does a goat go for these days?
Yeah.
Like I say, my goats, they make all our money in saving us property taxes. So anything we sell them for, I said, how about $100 for 3 goats? And he said, no, here's $120. So I said, thank you.
All right, so $60 a goat. Okay.
Well, 40 is what I ended up selling.
Oh, 40. Yeah, 100. I can't do math. I can't math.
You said there'd be no math. What the heck? Come on now.
A quick update on the EDL app that I've mentioned before. We've had a small group of beta testers pounding on it. I want a larger group of Delta testers. It's still not ready. Functionally, it seems to be there. Most of the force closes and all that stuff have gone away. The design is still in the rough stages. But what I'm going to do is, with this show, I'm going to put the notes up on elementop.com, and I'm going to put a link to the APK out there. So you bold Android users who have the ability to add sideload apps not in the store, please give it a try. The idea, in case you don't remember, there's podcast apps everywhere, right? The thing that was special about this was sort of my dream app, and in time we hope to be able to, meaning I'm going to make the Kaiser add this feature, and I want to open it up to multiple feeds, so it will become your podcatcher, and hopefully we can sell it and Kaiser can make some money off of it. But right now it just automatically grabs the EDL feed. But what's special about it, it's a player and all that sort of stuff, but what's special about it is that you can inline, while you're listening to a show, add a comment, and that comment is time coded so that as anybody else is listening to the show at that same time, they can see all the comments made at that time. So you can jump both ways. You can jump to a time code by a comment, so you can scan the comments and click on it, and it'll take you to the part of the show where that comment was made. Or while you're playing along, you can look and see that there were comments made at that time. And I'm pretty sure the notification, like as you're playing along, hey, there was a comment made here, isn't working yet. So it's still in early days, but we need some people not only pounding on it, but using it. We want the community. So the idea is that this is the way for you to feedback to each other and have conversations around the podcast while you're listening to it. So it's an asynchronous conversation synchronized with the podcast, so that the conversation can go on for months or even years. As new people pick up the podcast, see the comments, add to them, and it's exciting to me. It's the app I've always wanted. And I mentioned it on the show a couple of times, and Kaiser popped up and said, hey, I'd like to take a stab at this. And so we've been through several iterations just between him and me, and then I think there are like 4 beta users using it right now, not a bunch, but we want more people pounding on it. So I'm going to put it out there, and I encourage you to please download this app and not just have it, not just look at it and go, well, it works, or it doesn't work, or it looks like crap. I want you to use it. I want these conversations, because we need to see how the database scales and all this sort of stuff. So we need to, there are thousands of you, not just dozens. There are thousands of you who listen to this show. I would love to see a large percentage of you using this app and commenting on it. And those times when you're yelling at me and pounding on your dashboard as you drive, pull over and type those comments in. That'll be so cool. And of course, it'll degenerate into flame wars, and the Nazis will be mentioned at least once per episode. But that's okay. But right now, I'm hoping you guys will use it.
So
pop-up podcast, woohoo!
Yes.
So just to put something in my mind here, so is it just going to be mobile driven? Or are you going to have a web client that would then be able to see the same comments if you're like on a terrestrial, a regular desktop?
Right now, my focus is on the phone. Okay. An HTML5 version of it would work on all clients, so I'm sure that's something that could happen in the future. That would be great, but I don't think, just based on the interaction that I've gotten from the audience, most of our people don't listen to the show at a computer.
Right. Well, no, my thought was that, say you're driving or doing whatever, you don't have time to pull over, but you'd be able to then, say, pull up the app on your PC at work, or an HTML5 web page, and then add your comments in at that timestamp.
Yeah.
So just a thought.
So that would be an interest. So if I'm understanding you correctly, you want to be able to bookmark it just for you to go back and be able to comment on it later?
That would be kind of nice, wouldn't it? Because if you can't comment right now, like you're sitting in your car, you're a voice command saying bookmark that. So then you could go back to your app. And
voice command. Now you're getting all kinds of fancy on me.
Well, since you so graciously told me about Agent, and I've been using that pretty heavily.
Isn't it great?
I love it. But the voice commands in the car are very handy. So when a text comes in, I'm able to reply right away and have it read to me, et cetera, et cetera. So it'd be really cool if I'd be able to say, EDL bookmark. And then it doesn't have to be a very big command, just something quick that you can then come back and look at the app again and find all those spots where I said bookmark, so that I could either write a full form comment or revisit those particular spots.
I don't know. I think if you took the time to think about it, it would take the fun out of it. The idea is to get your initial irate comments down.
Right. Well, yeah.
But if you could leverage the Google
Text
Text-to-Speak thing, and since I'm dealing with somebody else's programming time, sure, I'll say we'll throw that in there. Again,
it's an idea.
And I hope that Kaiser can make some money off of this. I want this to become, right up there with Dogcatcher and Beyond Pod and G-Potter and G-Potter. Wow, I went way back for that one. And these things, Pocket Cast. I want it to be in the store as a choose your own feed and build communities around other people's podcasts as well. That's my dream for it, and I hope he'll charge $5 or $6 for it, because once it's finished, it'll be worth that. It'll be worth way more than that. In fact, a great money making thing would be for him to create branded versions for each audience. So like we could have an EDL app branded for us. I would pay him for that privilege, but that people would also be able to put their own feeds into it, so it becomes an all-encompassing app, but branded by me. And there
you go.
I think that would be a cool way to go.
And then he'd be also able to monetize it towards other podcasts. Let's say if Hack5 wants to use his program, they could pay him for licensing, and he could then issue a Hack5 one, or a Leo Laporte version, or whatever. It'd be cool.
So I'm excited. Again, this is something I dreamed up, I don't know, 6-7 years ago, and I've lamented the fact that it doesn't exist. And I've done it on the show like 3 or 4 times, but one of those times, the right guy heard me at the right time in his life, and so I'm super pumped about it. But again, I'll be putting the link to the APK. Right now, it's been email me and I'll send it to you. I think it's safe enough and ready enough that I'm ready to go ahead and endorse it by putting it on my site with a link to it. And cool. Get some more people using it.
Very cool. I'll be glad to take a look at it when I get a chance.
All right, moving right along. Loot Crate is also. Tell me about Loot Crate, Chris.
Loot Crate is my wife, my love of my life. She knows I'm a geek and I'm a gamer, and I'm I have no problem flashing those 2 cards out and saying, yes, I'm a geek. Loot Crate is for someone like me or somebody else who likes video games and geeky stuff. So for the default subscription is $14 a month plus shipping, so it's about $20 a month. You get a box of miscellaneous gear. So last month was my first month of getting this, and I ended up getting a bunch of little, like, I got a book for Ready Player One, some old school comic, or let's see, this is an old school poster of Pac-Man, and then it was all based on old school games or tabletop games. Like, how many times have you ever done rock paper scissors? I got dice that say rock paper scissors on them.
That's funny.
So it's just little gimmicky stuff that it's something that you'd probably go, if you were in Spencer's, you'd probably find it and buy it, or it just shows up on your mailbox. And the other thing that's really cool is there is a random mega crate that gets sent out, and it's like $2,000 of value, and somebody randomly gets it out of the pool of people. So I've never met anybody who's got the mega crate, but the next one is worth like almost, $2,000, because they just throw a bunch of really high-end gear in them. I think they had a 3D printer in one of them in one of the months. So it's kind of a cool thing if you like, little figurines of Batman or Sonic or some other different game. I mean, they have a whole bunch of them, and then they have on their website, you can go back and see what they've shipped out before. So it's just a cool little site. It's definitely fun. This month's theme is covert, so like spy stuff. So I'm kind of interested to see what actually comes out in the Loot Crate this month.
It doesn't sound like something that would appeal to me, but people who like this thing will find this the sort of thing they like.
Oh yeah, and there's lots of them that do this. There's a couple other different places that do similar to Loot Crate. I really like Loot Crate so far. My little brother's been getting it for a year now, and he says he'll never he'll pay his subscription every year because he likes all the little doodads he gets. He's got a wall of the little posters. He's been getting. He hasn't got one every month, but every one he's got, it's the same cut, the same shape. So he's able to just plaster them on his wall, and yeah, it's kind of fun.
So you don't get to pick what they get; they just send you stuff every month.
It's just a random grab bag of who knows what it's going to be. So it's kind of entertaining because you never know what you're going to get. If we would have got an order in earlier, like I got mine for the February month, which was the video game or board game type idea. The month before was retro themed, so it had like the Voltron T-shirt and some retro type stuff. Yeah, but they also had a Space Invaders tie.
Cool.
So it was like, oh,
I would totally wear that to work.
I would too, right? It's So it's just random stuff of comics, video games, and geeky stuff. So
you remember the original Voltron that was not 5 lions but like 100 cars in space? Am I
No,
the
that
only
was
one
the
that remembers
second
that?
one.
Was it?
No,
I'm
the
pretty
5
sure
lions was the first, and then there was like 25 cars was the second one.
I may have to go to the internet on that one. I was pretty sure that the cars came first and then the lions came because the cars was short lived.
I don't think that was called Voltron. I think it was called something else.
Well, you may be thinking of like the GoBots, which came before the Transformers, but there was definitely
not GoBots.
Okay. Anyway, I definitely remember a Voltron that was cars in space cars. They weren't on the ground, which was weird. They like weren't on a planet. They were in space. Why do you need a car with wheels in space? But they did. Then again, this whole thing may have just been a fever dream.
It may be a fever dream because the original Voltrons I remember were 5 lions, and they were really, some of them were really badly translated over.
Awesome. It was free. It was the Star Blazers and G-Force and
I watched them every morning.
Voltron. There was a whole bunch of that. I guess manga is what you would call it now. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anime type stuff. That's the stuff we grew up on. We 40-somethings. All right, so just a little bit of feedback from last week. Jeb Bush apparently listens to the show and had some comments on net neutrality. Actually, he's running for president unofficially. He hasn't said it yet, but I have a feeling he'll be there. And he had a quote that this is actually something that I said. He's been listening to the show. So the idea of regulating internet to access the internet with a 1934 law is one of the craziest ideas I've ever heard. It's interesting that the right wing, the conservative wing, wasn't really concerned about net neutrality at first, and particularly about the whole Title II thing, until once the president came out and said we think this is the way it's going to be. Suddenly they jumped to the opposite stance on it, because prior to that, some people had talked about regulating the internet. Some of these same people that I've heard as maybe not a bad idea or something to at least consider, and now they're all staunchly opposed to it.
Well, because they had to get the money from their lobbyists telling them to be opposed to it. If I were going to make an editorial comment, that might be something like what I would say. And my thing is, if you think that, if he thinks, then if Congress could come up with some good legislation that gave net neutrality, but not keeping the name, but the substance being different.
Right.
So if they could figure out some way to guarantee net neutrality without sticking it in Title II, I would be all for that. But of the crappy options that we have, that one's the least crappiest. So
and Jeb Bush is, in case you don't know, is the governor of Florida, or at least he was. I think he still is.
No, former. He is former.
Okay,
governor.
so he's not a congressman. He's not a lawmaker. So he literally has no power to do anything about this except to complain about it. The people who have the power to do it are Congress. They could write a legislation that regulates the internet in a sensible fashion, but they've chosen not to do that, and they've fallen back on a 90-year-old law.
Yeah.
80-year-old law.
Maybe it'll change. I'm hoping.
But yeah, like the whole point of the show last week was, I think there are problems brewing, but so far there's been nothing to complain about. So politics around the world being reactionary, we're going to have to wait till something breaks in a huge way before we get anything new. Because first it has to break, then you have to blame somebody, then you have to profit from the blame and get your political capital out of the fact that it's broken, then you fix it, thus doubling your political capital because you've blamed the person for breaking it and you've fixed it. So these right-wingers, and I am one myself, so I'm criticizing my own here, these right-wingers who are now criticizing the regulation of it are expecting bad things down the road, just as I am. And so they want to go ahead and get on record now as having said this was a bad idea.
Pretty much.
Welcome to politics.
Pretty much.
Quantum computing. It has existed for a while, but not in a useful state. Maybe that's changing?
Yes. After I compiled the list of stories that I liked, I realized, wow, I must work for Google or something, because most of these stories have something to do with Google, and it just, there's been other weeks where everything came from Yahoo, so that's just kind of how it worked here. But this week, in a breakthrough, researchers from UCSB and Google, they have figured out how to stabilize an array of 9 qubits, which is, in binary, you can have a 1 or a 0. But the qubits can be like 4 or 5 different things at once, and it was really cool. So one of the things they found out is, as the arrays get bigger, they become more stable, and while they don't necessarily stop the errors from happening, it prevents those errors from messing up later calculations. And one of the physicists involved, Scott Aronson, pointed out in his blog that his experiment can be considered as completing 3.5 of the 7 steps needed to build a working quantum computer. So in other words, we're halfway there. And one thing that he pointed out, the errors that the 9-qubit array can protect against are only the kind of errors that show up in regular computing. Protecting against errors that would show up in quantum computers will require more complicated programming. So it's like we're figuring out some of the problems that have kept us from getting to quantum computing, but at the same time we're realizing that once we get there, there might be other problems that will need to be addressed. So quantum computing, while still not here, appears to be closer than before.
And I'm not even going to try to give a layman's interpretation of what quantum computing is, because I'm not qualified. But essentially, it's looking at subatomic particles and using their state as your ones and zeros. That's the kindergarten version of it. So everything in the computer world is 1 or 0, and you look at this state, and it's based on its spin or any number of factors. And so you actually you're not stringing together atoms. You're stringing together pieces of atoms. When he's talking about 9 qubits, those are all presumably within a single atom.
Yeah, and one of the thing that makes quantum computing able to do so much so fast is apparently, instead of being either like on or off or positive or negative like a transistor or even an electron, it can be in multiple states at once. So it doesn't hold 2 possible data points. It holds like
all possible data points.
It's like 8 or 9 per qubit. So when you put those together, it adds up really fast. So, but yeah, I understand enough to go, that's freaking awesome. I don't know how they do it. I would,
I think there was a famous scientist, I forget who it was, who said something to the effect of, if you're not confused by quantum mechanics, you don't understand it well enough.
I'm confused. So
it's
I'm
at that level of size, the rules that we can see in our macro world fall apart.
Right.
And like the things that we consider strong forces are weak forces, and the things that we consider weak forces are strong forces, and everything spins on its ear. And like one of the basic principles is that things can be both on and off, and it's looking at it that decides whether it is on or off. So you can get whatever answer you want by looking at it at the right time. Again, super simplification, because I am not qualified to have this discussion at all.
Yeah, you've got to be very smart to realize how stupid you are in this field, so you can try to
Well
get
said.
smart. And while I'm probably not the dumbest guy in the room, unless it's a Mensa convention, I wouldn't even, once I heard quantum and physics, I'm out. I'm tapping.
I would have tapped the second you said, "Let's go down quantum physics or the quantum computer road." I've been like, "Nope, done."
Of course,
I know it's going to be cool.
every time we talk about science, I get feedback from some punk kid who's had high school physical science telling me I'm not doing it right. So I won't go any further, but it is pretty fascinating how, as you scale up and down, all the rules change. So
Right.
on the micro scale of quanta, the rules that we know in the it's not even macro, in the normal scale of humanity don't apply, and then when you go up to the macro scale of galaxies and those things, those rules don't apply. Everything gets flipped around depending on how you're looking at it.
Yeah. Interesting.
And
Be
while we're
cool when it happens.
the neat thing about quantum computing is that we'll be able to screw things up faster than ever before.
Nice.
And we already are pretty good at that. Now we're actually moving hardware flaws right into hardware. We don't need software anymore.
Yes, this is another story thing. We can thank Google's team of expert hackers at Project Zero. They have uncovered a serious security problem lurking in modern DRAM devices. And it's kind of like the hardware industry goes, oh yeah, but that's reliability stuff. We know about it. But people want cheap RAM. So the researchers found that as DRAM cells have shrunk, it has become harder to isolate memory in one address from corrupting data stored in another. And so they demonstrated, and this gets really technical, but there's a really cool word that I learned reading this article. Toggling of a DRAM's row word line, this is known as row hammering. So if you want to row hammer something, go for it. It stresses intercell coupling effects that, anyway, basically what happens is if you change the data in this portion of memory, it can affect the memory in an application next to it. So you can, in this one application, maybe you're sandboxed or whatever, the software doesn't matter, but you change the memory in another application and you kind of get control over it. So, they didn't test a ton of devices. They tested 29 different, and these are like Intel x86 model laptops built between 2010 and 2014, and they could flip bits in like half of them. So, but one thing to note is that all these machines tested were DDR3 RAM, which is currently out there, but the DDR4, however, it seems to contain some row hammer mitigations, and so maybe this issue has been addressed already. But yeah, so row hammering, that's the important takeaway from here. It's you can change the software's memory to affect memory that you can take every software precaution possible, but this is a hardware vulnerability that will bypass anything. So,
and one in which you have to have dedicated access, not necessarily physical access, but you've got to be able to literally hammer the row of memory for a long time in a very specific way. This is the ultimate, spear phishing. I know that this guy on this laptop has something I want, and I'm going to just go to town on it and burn up his CPU in the process of it. But it's certainly something that, say, a large government entity with 3 letters as the initials could and would use, and probably are using. So it's not really something that you or I are going to have to worry. That's my editorial. I don't think you or I have anything to worry about here, because it just requires too much resources for average script kiddie to deal with this one. This is international level espionage tool, but it is something that is baked into an existing set of RAM that somebody just decided to look for. And so, as Seth said, it's not the current latest RAM and it's fading away, but what's in the newest one.
Right.
Yeah.
It's interesting. go figure that, so we can figure that out just by hammering the row.
And it's a manufacturing defect, not a specification defect, and it's
Right.
because. Go ahead, Seth.
I was going to say, is it a defect or is it a byproduct of manufacturing? So you can't really say if it's a defect because what they're doing is they're trying to make it smaller. So
Right.
it's not necessarily a defect. They didn't, this row, there was the alignment didn't get off and put it too close. It's just the byproduct of making this stuff smaller and having an 18 terabyte SIM chip the size of your fingernail toe jam.
And using the cheapest supplies built by the lowest bidder to create it.
Yep.
So it's
interesting.
We have brought this on ourselves.
Oh yes, we want it faster and smaller.
I want a
The thing
50-pound
happens.
portable backpack with a 17-inch mono screen. I'll be safe from everybody.
Didn't you have one of those? I think I remember you having one of those from your dad, right? It was.
Yeah, the suitcase,
Yeah.
the 8088, it's not like 40 pounds, though. It's just like, I don't know, 10 or 15.
That's all.
Yeah.
And
It only has a little 5-inch green
Yeah.
screen, and the bottom is the keyboard. Yep.
8088 processor. That's prior to the single 8086, and then the 286, 386, 486. So you're 9 or 10 generations out on that one. And it had some amount of K of RAM in it.
Yep.
I remember you brought that over to my house, and I was like, "This is the most amazing thing ever." And well, I'm going to stop there. Moving right along, surprise newsflash: Linux geeks fight with each other. Now they're doing it in code, like in the code.
Well, and actually, what they've done is the Linux Foundation is kind of put out kind of like some conflict resolution. So the new code, it was made as a Linux patch, and it says, if, however, anyone feels personally abused, threatened, or otherwise uncomfortable due to this process, that is not acceptable. If so, please contact the Linux Foundation's Technical Advisory Board or the individual members, and they will work to resolve the issue to the best of their ability. And then the Foundation's executive director added, we believe the guidelines are grounded, and then blah, blah, blah. So the patch was written, and it was signed off on by 60 developers and accepted into the kernel by Linus himself. So, he has a reputation, has, not the nicest guy to get along with, but he understood, and he accepted it into the Linux kernel. So there is officially conflict resolution put in the Linux kernel now. So hopefully we can all get along and, keep milking this cow for all the golden eggs it'll lay.
Basically it says if you don't like it, talk to the board.
Yeah, basically.
And that's it's weird. It's a conflict resolution policy patched into the code of conduct, which is written into the source code of the kernel, if I'm reading this right. So
yes,
it is both code and directive and license all in one thing.
So it's not only software code, but it's also a code of conduct.
Right.
So,
yeah.
I mean, that's kind of cool that they did it that way. And so that way, everybody in the Linux kernel development community, they have access to the patch and they can see it. And, I'm sure it's probably just nothing but, remark statements. So it doesn't really do anything other than just sit there and say, hey, can't we all just get along?
Right. Weakest transition ever. Speaking of Linux, our friends over at the Linux Academy can teach you how to use Linux, how to make money with Linux, how to know what you're doing, and how to get along. Maybe they have a course on getting along with other geeks.
They can teach you how to go into the kernel and find that code.
If not, guys, get to work on a conflict resolution module in Linux Academy, because let's face it, every geek needs a little conflict resolution experience. We're not known as the most personable group of people in the world. But if you'd like to learn other stuff, like, for example, the history of Linux or how to use Amazon Web Services, or any number of different subjects, our friends over at the linuxacademy.com can help you out. Their stated goal is to take you from being a Linux noob who knows stuff about computers but is nowhere near an expert to a certifiable Linux professional. So they will guide you through not only the education process but actually the certification process. You can sign up for industry standard certifications right from their website because they have been deemed high quality content by those people, and they've partnered with the LPI and LPIC. There's another one, the EIT ABCDFQ. Anyway, they have partnered with these people because their content is good. What is that content? Well, it starts with videos, step-by-step video courses designed to take you again from being a neophyte, a beginner, to an expert. But it's so much more than just video courses. Each course has with it a companion PDF guide that's time coded to what's going on in the video, so that you can watch and then you can read and you go back and watch a little more and then you can go back and read a little more. And then when you're done, there's going to be some practice quizzes. Not every course has a quiz with it, but there are quizzes all along. Not every video has a quiz with it, but every course has a series of quizzes that go along with it, so that you can test your knowledge and make sure you understand what you're doing. But if you're a hands-on kind of guy, as I am, or girl, there may be a girl listening, they also have this amazing lab infrastructure out there as well. A virtual lab system living on Amazon's cloud, so it's super fast and highly reliable, and you're going to be able to get to it from anywhere. You can run up to 8 different versions of Linux, different software distributions, so they're not just locked into Ubuntu or Arch or whatever. You get to play with different ones and get experience with all of them, and you can run up to 4 of them at a time, interacting with each other and interacting with your local client, so that you can actually build a server and a client, and you can build 2 servers and have them talk to each other, all in a safe environment in your own little virtual network, so that if you nuke something, it's not going to bring down Seth's internet connection there in Texas. It's all safe, it's all high reliable, and it's all really high quality. And of course, naturally, you're going to pay a ton for all of this because, like what I just said, videos, PDFs, labs, quizzes, direct access to licensure authorities. Naturally, this is going to be expensive. It's just the nature of the beast. And in fact, they're really just raking you over the coals at a grand total of $25 a month. No, that's the most you can pay. That's their highest price, $25 a month. So the cost of a pizza a month will get you a new career or a start on a new career. But if, like anything else, the more you buy, the cheaper things get. So if you buy 3 months or a quarter, it's $65. Which instead of the $75, there's $10 discount there. Or if you want to buy a chunk for a whole year, it's $215, which breaks that $25 a month down to just under $18 a month. So it's a pretty significant discount there if you want to buy for the year. What we recommend is buy it for a month, check it out, kick the tires, see if you like it, and you're going to, and then buy either one of the quarter or annual subscriptions. And if you go to linuxacademy.com/everydaylinux, you'll get a special discount on that as well.
Can't say it any better than that, Mark. I like the fact that they also tell you the more command line way of doing things, and the GUI way, so that way you get to be a little more well-rounded.
Yeah, and they've added several courses, everything you need. So it's not like they built this great course content and they've just let it sit there to milk it for everything they can. They're adding stuff to it because, stuff you learned 2 years ago might not be applicable in today's world. So this is your one-stop shop. You can go here, and if something new is coming out, it's probably going to show up here. So, good stuff.
All right, now back to Everyday Google. Google wants to own all your data, literally, on their servers. So their new cloud storage is called Nearline.
Yes, they announced this recently. It will cost 1 cent per gigabyte per month for data that can be accessed in 3 seconds or less. If that 1 cent per gigabyte per month sounds familiar, Amazon, they have a similar service. They've had it for a while called Glacier. But if you go to Amazon's website, Glacier can take several hours to retrieve stuff because, and so in Amazon's case, it's stuff that, archive backups that are important, but not at this moment important. So Google has said, we can do that, but we can get it to you now so you can back up important stuff and be able, come on, 3 seconds or less, while technically not considered online or real time, 3 seconds. If
yeah, it's not something you'd want to watch a video off of, but to pull up a tax document, absolutely.
So yeah, and
or anything.
This article says that this is just another way where Google is pushing the industry towards race to zero, and that's a term you may or may not have heard, but it's the day when cloud storage will essentially be free, and the cloud providers will have to figure out somehow to make money by offering something on top of the storage. So, Google is making it cheaper to store stuff. A 1 penny per month for a gigabyte. So you could have 100 gigs for $12 a year. That's pretty cheap.
Yeah, that is really cheap. I wonder how good that would be, like, for if you wanted to use that storage for, like, say, hosting a podcast or something that doesn't have to be real time, but you just need to be able to download it.
That $12 per year. That's what you said. $12 per year
for 100 gigs.
For 100 gigs is a fraction of what I'm paying Dropbox for the same amount. I have a 100 gig account. Not a 100 gig account. No, I don't even have that. So I have less than that. What somebody else is going to do, maybe Google will, maybe somebody else will, is start building wrappers around it that are Dropbox like, that sync things and do those things, and Google is just going to be the engine that runs that. People may even build whole services off of it and eat the cost of the Google storage for their business. But yeah, $12 a year for 100 gigs, that is essentially free. For all intents and purposes, that counts as free.
Well, and who knows? Maybe they have a thing where if you buy so much, that's just their intro price. I don't know what it would be if you want to buy 100. Would they give you a break? I don't know.
How do you give a break off of a penny? Where do you go to next? You start cutting pennies in half?
I don't know. You go. I have no idea.
Yeah, so it's at that point you start measuring terabytes instead of gigabytes. Like if I wanted to order, 100 terabytes, would I get a special deal? I don't know. But what's 100 I'm really terrible at on-the-fly math like that. But that's like $1,000 a year for 100 terabytes.
Well, no. 1 terabyte would be
okay. So
$1,000.
100,000 a month or a year?
I think so, because 1 terabyte.
See,
would be
once the zeros start flying,
1 terabyte would be $10 a month.
Yeah, okay. So $1,000 a month for 100 terabytes, $12,000 a year. If you're building a data center or building a service that needs 100 terabytes, $12,000 a year is cheap.
Yep.
Wow.
So yeah, this is darn cheap. I don't know how they afford to do that. I know hard drives are cheap, but hard drives aren't free. So that's an amazing thing. As I was reading this article, I was seriously thinking I need some Google Cloud storage, but
don't know what for.
My bandwidth, yeah, I don't know. My bandwidth, I couldn't really use it, but dadgummit, I'd have it. So.
All right. It'd be interesting to see what someone could actually make out of that. If you're thinking about storage is basically free, you could do all sorts of things with it, especially if it's not real time in need. There's lots of things you could use.
The problem with that is this next story we're about to talk about. There was a time where people all over the world could not access Google services because of a routing leak from an Indian broadband internet provider, and by Indian we mean from the country of India. And just to refresh people's memory or maybe educate them a little bit, a routing leak occurs when a network provider broadcasts part of their internal routing tables to another company through something called the Border Gateway Protocol. And, and I'm not saying, ooh, look at this, haha, Google went down, but this is just to show people that sometimes, the people who, run the routers that make up the internet, they need to really stay on top of what they're doing, because it was a couple of years ago through the Border Gateway Protocol, large sections of America were subject to the Chinese firewall policies because of incorrectly configured Border Gateway protocols. So, here, if you have all of your data at Google Storage and it's super cheap, but somebody misconfigures a router, you can't access your stuff because all of a sudden it's gone. So, this is just one of those stories that be careful about putting everything online, because through no fault of your own, no fault of your ISP, somebody else messed up something, and the next thing you know, you can't access. And let me tell you, you don't want to be without the internet for a week, because I can speak to this one from personal experience. It is not a fun time. Luckily, I could stay late at work a little bit and just kind of, YouTube or whatever after work, so it wasn't total loss. I didn't kill myself or anything, but it's not fun. So, be careful. It's just, I don't know. It's just one of those things to remind people that, hey, the internet is awesome and it's great, but at the same token, it's not ready to be your source of life. Yeah.
Well, we've talked about this before in different ways.
Yeah.
The problem is the internet was built on inherent trust. So with the Border Gateway Protocol, as well as lots of other protocols, if you get a packet from another router that says, hey, here's some new information, your router says, okay, because it's got no reason to verify it. And there's not only no reason, there's no mechanism built in to verify it. A lot of the fancy routing that happens, the fact that we can have this conversation over Skype and record it on YouTube and do all, happens because routing is happening autonomously. If there were checks on that, if there were verifications on that, it would slow down or even break the process. So we have this free-flowing amoeba of data that relies on everybody trusting everybody else. So far, these two examples that we've talked about have been mistakes, but it could just as well be malicious. These things take time to propagate out to the world and then take time to self-correct. So let's say somebody in Iran decides they want to be malicious. They could do significant damage for a short period of time to the global internet infrastructure. It would be correctable, and they would be able to shut down the border. They would be able to stop listening to the Border Gateway Protocol from Iran. I'm picking on Iran because they're not nice people in general. Emails will begin flowing down any time now.
I can see them coming.
But the thing is that a bad actor can do a lot of damage for a short period of time, and it's just inherent by the way we built this thing.
Well, and another drawback is there could be nothing wrong with your network or your ISP. Everything could be functioning normally, but the rest of the world isn't seeing you based on whether it be an accident or malicious. Everybody who tries to go to elementop.com/Amazon for their shopping convenience, all of a sudden ends up on Newegg. And so Amazon's lost money and we're not getting the thing. And we're set up correctly. Amazon is set up correctly. AT&T got their stuff together for our site, and they're set up correctly. But something outside of our control that we don't even know about could prevent other people from being able to access our information. And again, this isn't the sky is falling. I love to be the tinfoil visor kind of guy. This is just to not acknowledge that is a possibility and have some vague contingency plan in mind. It's just kind of foolish. It's sort of like, well, it's like a lot of stuff, but I was going to go into some analogies, and the analogies would have taken even longer to explain.
So one of the ways to insulate yourself from this is to store all of your data locally on a new, for example, 10 terabyte hard drive.
Oofta.
10.
That's a big drive.
Yeah, and this is the kind of drive that's going to be designed for, it will fit in a regular drive bay. I have no idea how expensive this would be.
$6 or $7 at least.
At least, I mean, what is the going rate? A penny per gig. So, but yeah, this is. Let me see the name of the company. HGST. Freaking 10 terabyte hard drive, and they are expecting to ship Q2 of 2015. So sometime within the next 4 months.
If I remember correctly, HGST is one of those white label people that they make hard drives for other people. So it may end up being a Hitachi or a Samsung or an LG or something like that, made by these people.
Yeah, let me see. HG. Aren't they the ones that used to be IBM hard drive? Hitachi Global Storage Technology. Yeah, these are the ones that used to be IBM hard drive, and then they were bought by Hitachi, and now they're a wholly owned subsidiary of Western Digital. So these are like, it's sort of like when Dell bought Alienware, and they kept the Alienware brand because Alienwares are freaking awesome. Western Digital purchased this, but they kept this brand because this brand is freaking awesome. We did the backplane report,
right?
And these were the drives that for all practical purposes never failed. Their failure rates were so much less than the other people. But yeah,
and if you're putting 10 terabytes on a 3.5-inch disk, the error correction there has got to be off the wall. So I'm imagining there's a processor that just 10 years ago would have been on a desktop that's going in this hard drive to do the error correction at that, assuming it's at any speed. So if it's at SATA 3, 6 gigabit per second speed, at that storage density, oh my gosh, it's probably got 30 terabytes crammed in there and just error correcting like a madman the whole time.
Yeah, that's just.
I wonder how long SpinRite would take to run on that.
Okay, moving right along. Goodbye Google Code. Google has a way of stepping in to fill gaps, and then when other people surpass them, they just take their dolly and go home, and that's what's happening with Google Code.
Yes, they announced this week when we started the Google Code. Let me start over. When we started the Google Code Project hosting service in 2006, the world of project hosting was limited. We were worried about reliability and stagnation. So we took action by giving the open source community another option to choose from. And then, as people migrated away, basically the projects that remained were basically spam or abuse generators. And so they realized, they looked at the projects that are there and go, we're causing more harm than good to the greater internet. So as of March 12, 2015, no more new projects are allowed. And come August the 24th, 2015, it will be read-only. So now if you have a project there today, you can still develop it. Yes, did I say something else?
You said 2014. That's already passed.
Oh, okay, yeah. 2015. So you can still work on and develop projects that are there. They have until August of this year. And then come January of next year, the project hosting service will be closed. So between August and January, people will be able to download and access what's there, but they won't be able to modify what's there anymore. And
support your stuff out, send it over to GitHub, start over from there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because nobody uses SourceForge anymore. They're for losers, apparently.
And one of the sites that I wanted to lament about that is currently on Google Code, but nobody's going to care because it's dead, is Webcam Studio. It was something that I was super excited about 3 years ago. It's a live video compositing. It's essentially what Google Hangouts does, only better, for Linux. And there are other tools that do that on Windows and Mac. But what's frustrating to me is that there's nothing out there on Linux. So, I talked about getting the new hard drive, new webcam, and, looking toward putting some effort into, this production thing. And the more I look into it, the more I realize I can't do this on Linux. I'm going to have to get a Windows or Mac machine in to do my Linux show because the tools that I want don't exist on Linux. And I know I'm going to get emails saying, well, have you tried X that does 1/10 of what you want to do? Have you tried Y that compared with X can do 15% of what you want to do? Have you tried Z that compared with X and Y can do about 35% of what you want to do? Why Why should I have to do this? This is a weakness of the Linux community, and we need to make this better. And there's money to be made in it, right? So there's I'm blanking on the name of the tool that everybody uses right now. Wirecast.
Wirecast, yep.
Wirecast is on Windows and Mac, and people pay lots of money for it, $500 per seat for the Pro version of it, and so there's money to be made on it. Somebody just needs to do it on Linux. But the problem is, once somebody does it on Linux, it will be open source, or some part of it will be open sourced, and then somebody will take it off, and suddenly there's no money to be made on it. So that's what I think is happening. But I mean, maybe you could port things over to. But the point is, people like myself like to say that Linux is a viable platform, and it is, as long as you want to do certain things. If you just want to do an email and web station, it's fine. If you want to do a gaming station, it's fine. You want to build a server, it's amazing. You want to do a live video webcast? No. I'm using Google Hangouts here because it's the best thing on Linux, and it's not even on Linux. It's on the web, but it doesn't do everything I want to do.
Well, and there's other things too that are missing that people have in Windows that we don't have in Linux world. We were talking pre-show about how you can't adjust your white balance because there's no tools allowing you to adjust it.
Right.
It's ridiculous. We should have those type of tools, but
see, I'm willing to not blame the Linux community on that particular one, because this webcam is made by Microsoft, and if I put it on Windows, I can use their drivers, and I have those tools. They just haven't open sourced their APIs, their code to their drivers, so that it can be done on Linux. So that's on Microsoft. But also it's because Linux is 0.018% of the people they care about, and so it's not worth hiring a programmer to port their stuff to Linux. So I'm willing to give a pass on that one. But these other things that are not hardware specific, that can be done with just using tools that are available, but it's hard, and it's going to take a lot of time. And the guy who was making Webcam Studio was really on the way to do some great stuff. I used it for a while, and when it was still in the alpha state. It wasn't even beta, and it was really good. But he got a real job, and I'm not mad at him about that. And he put all his stuff out there on Google Code and said, "All right, guys, pick up where we left off." And the internet responded with cricket chirps. So there's a thing that's going to go dead when Google Code goes away, and it's something that I need, and something that I'm willing to pay for, frankly. But it's just not out there. It's not the tools that I want to do. The tools for an advanced user just aren't available on Linux in so many cases, especially in the terms of media, of broadcasting and audio and video. I mean, as I've said before, I do the recording for this show on a Windows box, because my mixer doesn't work on Linux. And again, I'm willing to give the Linux people a pass on that, because it's the Alesis company that didn't make a driver for it. But it's a self-replicating thing, right? If we had better tools, more people would be using it, and there would be a bigger market for them to write drivers to.
Right. It's just a chicken and egg thing, and right now there is neither in some of them, in some tools. Now you have other tools, like I'm sure we're going to get some flack or some angry emails about the fact that we're not seeing any love about KDN Live, or what's that other one? Is it Shotwell that does video editing?
Right, and that's fine for offline post-production, and they're still not as good as their Windows or Microsoft counterparts, but at least they do exist. The trouble is, for live video and audio, stuff just doesn't exist. Or if it does, tell me I'm wrong. If it does and I don't know about it, awesome. I'd love to know. Let me know.
So tell us, people. Get on those emails, and let's hear something other than flame. It'd be nice to hear some creative thoughts instead of just marks full of garbage.
Yeah. So one of my goals is to make this a fully produced live video production, and I want to then record that live video and produce it. I want to have an audio feed and a video feed. Something I've wanted to do for a long time. Two things have held me back. One, it's expensive, and I just haven't had the spare resources to do that. You guys are stepping up and with Patreon and with the Audible link and the Amazon link and the great guys over at Linux Academy letting us prostrate ourselves to them for sponsorship. The money is now coming in. It's not huge, but there's some there, right? For a long time, this cost me money. Then for a long time, it was a break-even thing. Now I'm starting to make a little money, so I'm taking that money and I'm giving back. We've talked about that. I take 10% of everything that comes in and I give it to some worthy open source project. I'm paying these guys, which is something that for 3.5 years they didn't make anything. Now they make a pittance, but at least they make a little money. And then I'm taking what's left over and I'm putting it back in gear, and I want to make this a better thing. So I'm excited that you guys are stepping up and you're making some money come in. More would be better, as with everything, as with everything except maybe bacteria. More is better, and I'm confident that's going to happen. But I also know that unless things radically change, when I get to that point where I have the resources and I have the capacity to do the thing I want to do, I'm going to have to do it on Windows. And that just that frustrates me.
And it's sad. We shouldn't have to be in that position. We're trying to be a Linux-only show, and, it's sad that we don't have the tools to do it. So, yeah. That goes back to our conversation that we had a couple months ago about if you need the software and it's out there, you should at least donate something to the people doing it, because obviously if was a webcam studio guy,
mm-hmm.
if he would have been making money on his project from donations, maybe he wouldn't have had to get a real job and he would have been able to keep working on it. Just a thought, people.
Yeah, and I would be happy to pay him or somebody else, $500 for a finished product that's equivalent to what's out there now, because that's the going rate. $500, $600, $700, that's okay. I'm willing to do that. Trouble is that's not enough money for somebody to stop working for a while to code this thing. So It would have to be lots of people paying $500 is in, and the Linux community has a reputation. Stereotypes are stereotypes for a reason, and the stereotype of the Linux guy is he doesn't pay for nothing, and there's a reason that's out there.
Yeah, and I think personally, though, I think that mentality is slowly changing with, the idea of micropayments from your Android devices and your in-app purchases. It's slowly, I think that is starting to change. But I know personally, I've bought lots of software, be it on Android or terrestrial. But it's just one of those things. If it's a project that I'm using, that I'm actively using, more than, say, once a month, I will actively pay for something. No problem. So, just my thought on it. Wow, we just whipped down a rabbit hole.
No, that's all right. I wanted to go there. It was a planned rabbit hole. But because we don't have any more time for news stories. So, Seth, tell us what happened this week in Internet history.
Okay, this is a pretty big deal. March 15th, 1985, so 30 years ago today, actually, the first internet domain name is registered, Symbolics.com. You go there today, it's like this weird page that doesn't really do anything but sit there and perpetually load. But it was the first internet domain name registered, and that happened this week in history, these 30 short years ago.
So here's the about page from Symbolics.com. Symbolics.com is owned by a small investor group in Dallas, Texas. The site offers unique and interesting facts pertaining to business and internet history. Symbolics.com also offers unique advertising opportunities for select companies. So how did I come to own the first domain name registered on the internet? Symbolics.com was registered on March 15, 1985. I was 5 years old. I like to tell everyone that I had incredible foresight as a toddler, but that's not the case. So the Symbolics Computer Corporation, they registered the name, and they were ahead of their time. So that's a neat little thing. So you go to the About page for that and learn a bit about it. But the site itself...
the About page wouldn't load for me earlier. It just clicked, and it wouldn't do anything. So this time it came up for me.
Doesn't seem to be super useful from what I can tell, but I've only spent 45 seconds on it.
Yeah, well,
Not a whole
you
lot
spent
here.
30 seconds longer, or you spent 44 seconds longer than what it takes to find out everything. So, but yeah, so that happened. That's how young the internet is. 30 years old is the oldest residence around.
Well, that's the web, not so much the internet. So
Well, the first internet name.
right. So what I used to teach basic computer literacy to teachers, and one of the demonstrations I used to do. Again, you got to go back to 1997 when this was happening, 98. I would say, people talk about getting on the internet. I would lay an Ethernet cable on the floor and stand on it and say, now I'm on the internet. That's what it takes to be on the internet. The internet is a collection of hardware devices running specific protocols. What you want to be is on the web, and the web is a software device that sits on top of a hardware device. And I use the analogy of the calculator in Windows. You load the calculator. It's not a real calculator. It's a software calculator that performs the functions of a calculator on the computer. And that's what the web is. The web is a software device that runs on top of the hardware internet. So I still to this day get a little cranky when somebody says, I found it on the internet. Really? You were crawling along a fiber optic cable and saw it? You found it on the web. But that's
I
just
have
because
better luck finding something on the internet than in it at my bandwidth.
That's just because I'm pedantic and a jerk. So Seth, what happens? What do you have this week to lower my productivity so that you look like a better hiring opportunity?
Okay, well, this week I'm actually out to help people get ahead in life. So this is a good one. This is if you go to magnifymoney.com/compare/savings accounts. This shows you the best rates that can be found on web-based banks. Because as you know, most brick-and-mortar banks charge you money to not do anything with your money. But like, for example, and this has actually changed from whenever I first came across this site earlier this week, you can find 1.15% interest on a zero minimum balance at Quorum Federal Credit Union. So, and again, you're thinking that's only 1.15%. If you think that's nothing, go look and see how much are you making on your savings account.
Compounded daily. That matters too.
Yeah.
Yes.
Interesting.
No. But yeah, so this is just a different thing, and these numbers change because, like I say, earlier in the week, Salem 5 Direct at 1.1 was the best one out there. So here it is in less than a week. And maybe it has the Fed talks about raising interest rates. These numbers will go up. So if you're looking to, and for Quorum, you can open it with $10. Start now with a few bucks, and as you get.
Oh, did you go away, or did I go away?
I think Seth did.
Away. All right. So I was going to say that some time ago, due to an inheritance situation, my wife and I came into a fairly significant sum of money that I have been putting in various accounts, and I get statements back and say that this quarter you made $23 in interest. So interest is something. It used to be that you could get 10 or 12%, but that's not the case anymore. So 1% is a bigger deal than you might think it is.
Yeah, I was pretty happy with my one of my accounts is sitting over at Ally, and I'm pretty impressed that they gave, they have 99. According to this site, it's 99.99% on their standard savings, their online savings. So that's pretty good.
I have one of those interest-bearing checking accounts, and the first number after the decimal is a 0. That's my regular interest rate. It's 0.0 something.
Yeah. So with 0.99 as your savings, and I think it's 0.79 for your checking, Ally has been treating me really good.
Are you back, Seth?
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. Yes.
Okay. I could always hear y'all. I don't know what happened, but yeah, I'm at Discover, so I get 0.9, and I'm thinking about leaving them, but at the same time, why move? I don't know. Maybe open another one. Who knows?
All right, so this is the part of the show where I tell you how you can. Was there something else, Seth? Sorry.
No. I was just going to vamp a little bit more.
Okay. This is the part of the show where I tell you how you can let us know what you think through the EDL app. Now, make that happen. But also, you can go to elementop.com, click the Contact Us button. You know, now if I say that everybody's going to do the app, now it's incumbent on me to be reading all the comments from the app. Wow. I'm not sure I want to commit to that. But anyway, go to elementop.com, click the Contact Us button at the top of the page. A nice little form comes out there with one of the hardest CAPTCHAs in the world. And you fill that out. It sends a nicely formatted email my way, which gets priority in my inbox, so I always see those unless they go to spam, which doesn't happen often, but has happened. Also, you can send us an email directly, edl@elementop.com. That goes to all three of us, lest you think I am filtering your brilliant comments from the other gentleman. Or if you would like your voice to appear right alongside ours in the show, you can dial 559-IM-OPI anywhere in North America. And if you live outside the U.S., or outside of North America, I don't even know if you can call that number, but just send me a recorded file and that'll be fine. You send me a voicemail through whatever, because I like hearing from people. I do have a couple in the hopper right now that just didn't think was appropriate for this particular show, but there will be some coming up. As I often say, we do this for you, so it's important for us to know what you think about it. And also, if somebody out there wants to give us millions of dollars so that we can, develop software for Linux, I'm all for that. I'm probably not the best guy to give that money to, but I'll take it from you anyway.
And we'll find a good place to put some of it.
You guys got any closing comments or commentary before we close?
Well, we're just having an interview next week, so I'm looking forward to that.
Yes. What's the guy's name? Do you remember?
Let me see. Alex is the guy's name. If I recall.
From Kano.com, right?
Yes. They take the Raspberry Pi and turn it into a coding to teach youngsters how to get involved in their coding. And I really wasn't able to put that to much use this past weekend because a lot of it relies with stuff you get online and getting involved in the online community. So I'm really hoping to get some hands-on with it before the interview.
It's kano.me, not .com. So yeah, that's our first guest of the year, I think, right?
Yeah, it is.
So we look forward to more of those sort of things, but I'm always interested to see what people do with these microcomputers, the Arduino and the Pi and the Banana Pi and the Intel NUC, which isn't really a micro PC, it's just a small thing. But anyway, I'm always interested to see what people do with these things, and when they do stuff, related to education, I feel even more excited about it because that's the world I was in for so long. But yeah, I'm looking forward to this. So next week, tune in, I think at the regular time. I think we went back to the fact that it's now at the regular time, Sunday night, 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. You figure out what time that is for you, and we'll have Alex from the Kano project, company, whatever it is, on with us.
Yeah, it'll be great. Can't wait.
So, Chris, glad to have you back. Seth, Chris, as always, you're the great host. You're the best I could afford, and I love having you, listener. As always, you're the reason we do this show, as I just said, and we're glad you're out there. If you want to donate, I've already told you, previously several ways to do that. If you want to, the biggest way you can help us is to just tell other people about it. Go give us a rating and review on iTunes or Stitcher or Blueberry or whatever you listen to on, and any way you can tell people about us. Obviously, we hope you say good things. Tell good things to everybody else. Tell bad things to me.
There you go.
And so we'll see you next week because that ends this episode of Everyday Linux.
Later.
Toodles.
Awesome. So my Windows machine got literally to the moment I said Everyday Linux and crashed.
Really?
Yep.
Poopers.
Hard crash. Okay, I'm going to have to press and hold the power button to shut it down.
Wow. Not good.
All right, so you YouTube people who've been watching us, thanks for hanging out with us, and we'll see you next week. Cutting you off now.